In this video, I'll show you how to get this exact effect into your game. It's not just a simple bar that fills from left to right, but it flows through your custom texture with customizable speed. You can use it for health bars or to display mana, stamina, energy, or whatever you want to come up with. You can also take it even further and create unique custom fills that really set your game apart from the others. And by the end of this video, I'll show you exactly how I implement a variant of this same effect into my Unity game and how you can do it too. So before I show you how to implement it, let's take a quick look at how it works. First, let's take a look at the shader. It's a super simple shader. It basically has 4 properties. The main text, which basically takes in the texture that is used to fill the effect. Then we have fill color and background color. These just control the color of the visible part and the kind of hidden part. Then we have the value, which controls how much of the effect is filled. Then the shader is mostly just very standard shader. You can find it in the description below. The fragment shader, of course, is the interesting part. We first read the fill texture and store its color into the mask variable. Then, based on the mask value, if the mask is larger than the current fill value at the current position, then we basically return the fill color, and if the mask value is less than the value, then we return the background color. This is all the shader pretty much does. It just controls which parts to show of the mask based on the current fill value. Now, if you don't quite understand the shaders this much, that's fine. You can either, if you want to learn, you can ask ChatGPT how these work, just copy paste the code, or you can join my group and come ask me personally. If you don't care about how shaders work, then you can just find the code in the link in the description. The second part of the effect is the UI code. It's super simple. It just basically tells the shader which fill values to use. This code has an image and a glow images. The image is basically the fill texture, and the glow is an extra effect you can use to spice it up a little bit. It also has properties for value and max value. If, for example, you were displaying a health bar, and then you can set the max value to your max health and the value to your current health of your character. Then we have a material property. This is basically just to store a copy of the material. If you want to have multiple instances of this effect, then you need to use a copy of the material. Otherwise, all of the instances of this effect will be displaying the exact same value, and if you change one, all of the others will change as well. Then the code has some helper methods to set the value and max value and apply visuals when you do make changes. And the apply visuals method basically just sets the value parameter of the shader to the current health percentage or current percentage of whatever value this UI is displaying. And if we have the glow effect enabled, it will basically select the value of the glow so that at full health or full value, the glow is at maximum, and then it fades off quickly at around 90% of the value. The third component of the effect is the textures that control the fill, and the other textures for the UI element itself. So let's take a look at the layers one by one. We first have the outline. It's just to block out the UI. You don't need an outline, but for this effect I have an outline. Then we have the fill. This is the texture that controls how the effect is filled. This is not the actual texture, but this is used to create the texture. And then we have a background layer. And finally, we have this blur effect that gives it a bit of a glow when you're at full health or full value. And here, just to show you, we have this green texture that is kind of how to fill the texture. and then it turns it into this black and red gradient texture. And this is the values that actually tell the shader how to fill the values here. And finally, let's look at how it's set up in the Unity project itself. So we basically have this parent object that controls the or contains the whole effect, so you can move and scale it around. And then we have 4 parents. The bottom one is the glow effect. You can see it's glowing. And then we have the background and the fill. And lastly, on top, we have the line. In the inspector, the line is under the effect, but in game, they are rendered in the proper order. And of course, the parent object has the code that basically controls the effect with the value and the max value and the other properties as well. Although my test code has a bit more extra code just to visualize all of these test animations. Now it's time to implement this in Unity. If you want to take a look at the code, you can find the GitHub link in the description, where you can either download the full project or you can just copy the code that you need. Now I'll show you how I implement this effect into Unity. Let's start off with the textures first. So I have this brain texture, and basically what you want to have is a texture that is continuous. So basically you should be able to trace the complete texture from any point to all of the other points. Or, well, alternatively, you could have like islands, so you could have separate continuous shapes, but you need to make sure that all of the shapes are somehow continuous so that, you know, there is some way to fill it out completely. And what you want to do is kind of decide where the start point of the effect is, and then you want to take a color that is completely red. You don't have to use Krita, you can use any art program, but in your art program of choice, you want to find the start position and make sure that it's 100% red or 255 red. And that's good, that should work. Now, if you want to change the speed at which the effect fills, you can do that by changing the green color. So let's say I want it to fill fast in the center and then slow in on the edges. Then I could basically take a green color and then color the middle green and leave the edges darker. And that should work. But now I removed the red marks, so I want to make sure that I keep the reds here. And also, just to note, if you did have like the 2-side split, then you would want to make sure there's some red pixels on both of them. Otherwise, the next step will not work properly. Now, you also need a background layer. Well, you don't need them. These are how to make this effect look the way I make it look. But you can really change it the way you like it. The only layer that needs to be kind of exactly like I show it here is the fill layer here. But I basically have this background layer, and then I have a blur layer under it, which is just a bit of glow. And then you can have optionally an outline layer, but it doesn't look great for this effect. It's here just for demonstration. Then once your layers are done, you just want to export all of them into your Unity project. Now you want to select all of your textures that you've exported, and you want to make sure that the sprite mode is single. Then you can change all of the export or import settings the way you like them. I'm just gonna change the, for all but the glow layer, I'm gonna change the filter mode to bilinear. And actually, for the fill texture, you have to change the filter mode to point, and then you have to change the sRGB mode to false, and make sure that the read-write is enabled. If you don't change all of these 3 settings, the next step won't work properly. So the next step is to basically take this texture distance gradient script, which is in the GitHub link in the description. And you can just copy the script or clone the whole repository or the whole file. And you want to take this script, add it to a game object, and then we want to take our fill texture and drag it here. This script basically contains functionality to take the texture we made and turn it into a basically continuous gradient that is filled in the proper order. Then we want to go into the settings of the script, and the first step is to make sure that the gradient here has black in the left and then red on the right, like that. And then you can tweak the other settings as well, but the base settings are quite good and they should work just fine. Then you just basically right click the name of the script here and apply distance gradient. And you can see that for your project there should now be a generated textures folder. There you can find the newest texture, which should be there on the bottom. Yeah. And here we want to make sure that the sprite mode is again single. The sRGB mode is false. And then the other settings basically you can change if you want. I'm gonna change the filter mode to point, but you don't have to. It would work just fine either way. Then you can take that texture and drag it into your working texture. So now you can see we have the texture that we used to generate this one, and then we have the gradient here. Now that we have all of our textures, it's time to implement the shader. Now, you can code it yourself, or you can just check it out in the link in the description and you can copy it into your project. And once you have your shader, you basically want to right click it, go to create, and there at the top you should find material. And there we go. And in the material, you want to change the background color and the fill color to something that you like. Then in the material properties, you want to change the fill color and the background color to something that you like. I'm just gonna go with this black and the blue for the brain. Then it's time to create the effect itself in the UI. So we want to take a canvas, just an empty canvas is fine, and you want to go to UI and image. In this image, you then want to drag your outlines of your effect, or you can actually drag any parts of the effect you want. I'm just gonna drag the outlines. And then you want to make sure that to set the native size so that the object is like not warped, so that it's in the proper proportions. Then you want to add a child object to it, and you want to make sure that the rect transform mode is to fill the whole image, and then all of the offsets are at 0, so that it's the same size as the parent. Then let's add an image, and let's select one of our brain sprites. Then we want to copy it a couple times, and then we want to basically drag all of the elements into it. So we want to have our background, then the optional glow if you want, then our red and black fill texture, and then finally our outlines if you want the outlines. And you can go to the parent and you can remove the image. It was just to make sure that it's in the right proportions. And yeah, the outlines, they don't really look good for this effect, so I'm gonna remove them, but you can use the outlines if you want. Now let's just rename these so we can tell them apart. And for the fill, we then want to drag our material. And you can see the effect immediately starts working. And if you go to the material properties, you can start tweaking the values, and you can see that the fill is working properly. Now, if you have issues where the fill looks something like this, where it's filling up nicely in some places, but then in some places it just stops and it doesn't like pass through some parts, like this would be an example, or you might have just like single pixel somewhere that is red or black where it shouldn't. Then you just want to come back here into the texture, take your brush and just draw over it again. Make sure that everything is like that it is supposed to be filled is like full opacity. If you have parts where you have kind of islands like this, then the effect might not work properly. Even if it's very subtle like that, that also might make the script not recognize the flow of the texture correctly. So you just want to make sure that everything is full opacity if there are issues with the filling. Now that our effect is working properly, we still have to hook up the UI script to it. So I'm gonna use my test code. It's basically the same as the example code. The only difference is that there is this animation that makes it go back and forth. But the setup is totally the same. You take the image and the glow fields and you drag the fill into the image. And if you're using the glow, then you drag the glow into the glow field. Simple as that. Now I have my test script also set up, so if I drag it into the game, you can see that once it reloads, you can see that if it's working. Yeah, now you can see that the code is working properly. Now this would be a really cool mana bar for a wizard character in a game or something like that. And if you do use it, make sure to send me a link to your game so I can check it out. I'm really excited to see you guys implement this in your game. And you can use the scripts in the GitHub link freely. They are using the MIT license, so you can do anything you want with them. You can use it for your commercial project if you like. Now once again, if you found this useful, hit the subscribe button and you can find more of my stuff in the link below. See ya in the next one.